Yep. Ilinka, hopefully I'm saying your name right. I can't believe I haven't asked you before. It does come up as Tayasui. Sketches School, that's the right app. And same with Sketches, it may have Tayasui in front of it. They make amazing drawing apps. They have so many different to choose from. But they came out with Sketches School, I'd say probably a year and a half ago, which I love because there's no upgrades. So there's not going to be any pop-ups that to go to a pro account, any of those kind of things happening. Personally, when I sketchnote, I actually use an app called Paper. I've used it since I started years ago. But I do like the fact that Sketches School is completely free. And for our school iPads, if you're lucky enough to have them, it's a great option to kind of access. Yeah, it'd be great for your classrooms. If you have SIA iPads, great for that. Okay, so let's get chatting. Let's get started. So tonight we want to look at sketchnoting basics. If nothing else, just enjoy the process. Don't worry if you're not an artist. I'm not. I found over time there's some tips and tricks that kind of helped for taking those notes. I do have to say, as I've always been a doodler, so even when I went back to my notes for Teachers College, I had doodles all over the place. So it was just a way that kind of helped me remember. And Nancy, I don't know if you find the same thing with when you talk about mind mapping. For me, that idea that the visuals kind of are those memory triggers is a huge piece. I found I'd always be typing my notes and would never actually go back to them. But once I started sketchnoting, I'd actually have some of those memory triggers as we went along. So what is sketchnoting? Sketchnoting is really just visual note-taking. So it's using symbols, frames, connectors, and text to keep our notes. And there's a lot of people out there that sketchnote. I think it's interesting when people say, why would you do it? I think it's a great way to plan. It's a great way to keep notes. It's really up to you why you would use it. I think, especially with kids, it's always interesting to see which kids take to it and which kids it doesn't work for as much. But because of the open-endedness of a drawing app, students can really make it their own. And all of the tools we learn while we're sketchnoting, we can bring into pictures and labeling and creating on top of pictures as well. So there's lots of possibilities of bringing those drawing tools into the classroom, even with our littlest friends. And I'll be sure to, if I don't remember, somebody remind me before the end of today. There's a great kid app from Duck Duck Goose, if you're Chatterpix friends. That's a great one to access if you're in the primary years. What tool to use? Well, there's no right or wrong tool. So if you have a favorite drawing app, use the app you love. It was funny because I was trying to create my pages for tonight, and I ended up just going back to my favorite app because it was just so much faster. But yeah, there's so many different tools out there. What I do look for in an app is I'm looking for an app that does give me the tools readily available. So I love the Photoshop series of apps, but a lot of their drawing tools are hidden. So it doesn't make that quick note-taking or that quick sketching accessible. Like I said, if you're overwhelmed by the amount of tools here, you could definitely even go to an app like Pages or Keynote, and they have all drawing tools built in. So really so many possibilities. And to your point, Sula, I think it's amazing to see how kids can really capture their ideas in different ways through visuals. They're not having to try to put everything in full sentences, which really gets a lot of our friends capturing more of their thinking. But also, I think for so many of us think in different ways. So we don't always, or all of us, don't necessarily process in that linear fashion like a Google Doc, top to bottom. So it just gives students another way. Using Notability, yeah, that's a great app. And I love Joyce. I still have to say it's thanks to you. Joyce found that really cool new Chrome app, Chrome Canvas. So it gives students a great option online. Again, we'll take all of these apps and put them in. And because I will forget at the end, if you are working with primary, Draw and Tell is a great app for Android and Apple that can kind of access. So Kim, I'd start with Canvas, the Canvas Chrome app, just because it's web-based and it's already connected to their Google accounts. So on the Chromebook, it would be a starting point. The hard part, I think, for kids is drawing on a computer, and kids sometimes are better than we are. I've always found that a little hard, but it would be interesting to see kind of how the kids explore. So again, for the early years friends, a great option to kind of tap into. Okay, let's get into the basics. But just to show you, this is the disclaimer at the beginning. This is the very first sketch note I ever made. I was so proud of myself. I don't know why. At the time, I thought it was amazing. I had this fascination with using the watercolor brush, and I realize now I don't use it as for frames and some of those pieces. I didn't have a stylus yet, and I didn't know you could zoom in on the page. So I was trying to write with my finger, but not zooming in. Zooming in is the best tip when you're sketchnoting. So that did make a little bit of a difference. But yeah, I want you guys to give yourself permission tonight that if it doesn't look fancy like the fancy sketch notes you often see online, it's okay. We're all starting. I think the other thing to me too is just knowing why you sketch notes. So for me, I do it to take notes. I can get distracted any day of the week. So when I'm in meetings, I doodle. So even if I see if I can show you here. So this was doodles from 3 meetings I've had this week that I've just been doodling as we go along. So it just helps me stay focused. I'll also doodle to plan out an activity or to process things with a group. So there's something we've been working on together. So for that too, I often have to let go of it looking really fancy because sometimes I compare myself to other sketchnoters that use it more as a consolidation piece. So because it's a bit slower, those sketch notes sometimes are a bit fancier or neater. But yeah, we all explore and we all find our own rhythm as time goes on, which is really cool. And then over time, I got better. So this was just a visual resume I made to be different, because that's how my brain works sometimes. And yeah, that's kind of how we explored. So Shanna, great question. Right now, I'm just in Sketches. So if you guys want to open the app, I'll show you how we can get started with our notebook. So we'll open up to here and we'll see probably one notebook. I have a few different ones here that I've been saving up. And I'm going to click on the plus sign to create a new notebook. Now, if you're different apps work different ways, but usually that plus sign will get you a new page. Now in Sketches, we do have, because it's meant for sketchnoting, we do have that summer, that sketchbook, sorry, I read summer. And if we come in, we'll then get the plus sign for a page. So if we tap on that, we get into the screen. So let me know when you're on a new page and you see your drawing tools, and we can take it from there. Cool, Gabriella. Yeah, I've even made them as a facilitator. I sometimes will even doodle our thoughts and keep adding. So one summer we did it for primary basic, and by the end of the course, we had a sketch note of all of our thinking. But I love the idea of doing it collaboratively. There's a few different tools out there. It's just hard with a whole class. Like anything collaborative, you kind of have to have it structured. So let me know if you're good to go. I'm just going to come out because I have all my notes on the other side. Sorry. Sketches has a lot of tools, Winnie. That's for sure. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to just learn the basics and get to know our tools. So if you're using paper, same thing. You're going to open a notebook and then tap a new page. And your toolbars, your tools will just be on the bottom. If you're on a phone, sometimes they're hiding. So you'll see one tool on the bottom or one tool on the top, and you can just tap on it to get all your tools. The reason for messing about is we just want to kind of know what our tools do. So as we explore, I'm just clicking the little color icon in the corner. I'm just trying to see what the different pens are like, because that will help me choose later on, especially if you're sketchnoting live, what pens you want to use. So you want to try out your different tools, but we also want to look and figure out where our color swatches are or our color options. So look for your colors so that you can see how you can change those up. And also look how to change the size, as that already happened to me. So if you're in Sketches School, you're going to see the sizes over here on the side, and you have your 3 options there. So play around with your tools. Heather, great question. So I sketchnote a lot, so I invested in an Apple Pencil. So my Apple Pencil is connected via Bluetooth to the app, so it should recognize it right away. That being said, you can use any kind of stylus. So if you go to the events, just picking up those freebies, which will be a bit harder right now. But because my Apple Pencil is connected, it's not going to let it work. If you're doing this in the classroom, we've done this even with the early years. We went outside to do some nature journaling and some observations. I just picked these up from Amazon. They were $10 for 30. So I don't worry if they disappear or what our friends do with them. That being said, if you don't have a stylus, because they're hard to come by, a friend Tammy talked about taking your index finger and putting your 2 fingers around it so that when you draw, it's steadier. So that's a little trick. I don't know if you can see that there. It kind of is your index finger and then just putting the other 2 on so that it makes it a bit more solid. Oh, Siskel. That's cool, Chrissy. There's so many out there. Definitely try them out. Heather, I hope yours is starting to work. I love checking out some of those tools that as you're going through, you kind of want to decide what's a tool you like for writing. And remember that you can zoom in. So no matter the tool, zoom in on your page and zoom out. Some of them will even have dotted paper, which I love because the dotted paper helps me write better. But this is one of those things that often if I don't zoom in, whoa, that's really big. If I try to write just when it's really far out, my printing doesn't look as nice, but once I zoom in and zoom out, it just makes that a bit easier. Dollar store, Alinka, like you said, Dollar store definitely has them. A great option. Oh, Aaron, that's a bummer. Still hasn't arrived with the pandemic. The trick worked, Julie, awesome. Yeah, Tammy, I never thought of it before, but Tammy had talked about it just steadies your hand a bit because when you're trying just with the finger, it's a bit harder. But again, zooming in does make a big difference because it can look a little messy, but once I zoom out, they're not gonna notice. As you're going through, look and see if you can also find a tool that's a fill tool. So on Sketches School, it's over here. So it actually will draw based on my shapes that I create. In Sketches School, you also have these extra options. So I can come in and change up my layers. So it's a little more transparent. But yeah, lots of amazing tools to kind of explore. Let me know when you're feeling comfortable with the tools, and we'll take you to the next challenge. I always look for a tool that I'll use for writing, a tool that I would use for backgrounds, a tool I would use to kind of highlight, because those are the three things that I do the most. So I try to find where they are in an app. Yeah, Elizabeth, Sketch School does have the fonts and has the shapes. They're a little different because you, once you stick them down, kind of like a canvas, right? Once you stick them down, they won't move. You'll have to erase them or undo. If you're doing this as a labeling activity, the font's definitely a great choice. I find I don't use it as much just because I'm in the habit of writing out the words. But yeah, it takes a bit of time. Catherine, if you haven't seen Catherine, you're going to have to share one of your sketch notes on Twitter tonight, because Catherine's sketch notes rock. But yeah, one of the things with sketches is that you can take objects and it may, and I can increase them or decrease them. And we'll show you that again later tonight. I don't have that in the app I use and I miss it so much. So Elizabeth, this would, if you want to move things, on your toolbar, there's a little X-Acto knife and you can draw around the object you want and cut it out, and then you can move it wherever you want it to go. Once you stick them down, they're glued down, but the cutting out piece, Elizabeth, will help you move your text. But remember, when you're using your objects, the text or the shapes, think of them as stickers that you're gluing to your canvas. So of course we can cut them out and move them around. But if I had a colored background, I'm going to see that shape cut out. All right. I think we're ready for the next step, if that's okay. Just give me a little yes in the comments if you're good to keep going. Ready for the next challenge? All right. Awesome. Let's go. Cool. All righty. So the next piece is really something I learned from Michael Road. Again, when we think of sketchnoting, the purpose is really to quickly capture those ideas. So we want to let go of needing that perfect drawing and really trying to quickly capture an object with shapes. So he actually talked about, Michael Road, that there's 5 shapes that you can make anything out of. So if you, oops, and that one's not very bold. So we have a triangle, a square, a circle, a dot, and a line. And he talked about the fact that really anything could be drawn with those objects. So even something as simple, and I challenge you to take some of your summer favorites, something as simple as an ice cream. We can really quickly, it looks more like a basketball net that's gone to the, that's way too large. There we go. We have our triangle, right? We have our circle or half of a circle, and then we're just using the lines to add those details. So really quickly, we have something that's recognizable, but we can even look at objects around our house. So I have a fireplace around me. So even if I'm looking at something more detailed, it's hard to realize that I never realized before just how many details are in something. Oh, that's not right. The undo button is your friend. I find I use it more than the eraser, but the eraser is handy too. So I've definitely taken more time and more details, but again, we're still using the same shapes to create that scene. So looking around us, looking for those shapes and using them to compose an image. Great question. I'm sorry. To get to the next page, I'm going to mention it even though you found it. So to get out of a page, you just pinch, and then we're looking for that plus sign again. So pinch, and then look for your plus sign. I thought this would be an easy little challenge for friends, seeing if we gave them the shapes and what they could create around their house. Again, even looking at something like the globe, we have our rectangle on the bottom, our circle, line, line, and then I have my half circle. So it really breaks down drawing and makes it a lot more accessible. Questions, ideas, wonderings, tips from the pros in the room. I have to say I love the fill tool because it just makes those pieces just come together. It's my best kept secret. I always end up using the fill tool when I'm creating those quick symbols. The hard part about tonight is I want to see all your drawings and we can't from this side. But you'll have to tweet out some if you feel comfortable. Or maybe you can tell us in the comments what you created with your 5 shapes. So Mike Rode, the gentleman that talks about the 5 shapes, he has a book called the Sketchnoter's Handbook. He'll take you through a variety of different exercises, but you can find him. You can find his work online as well. He's also on Twitter. Yeah. So just I can do this tonight because I have the iPad. So just to zoom, I'm going to stretch. And to zoom out, I'm going to pinch. So that should work the same on transfer. Jennifer, are you using Adobe Autodesk Sketchbook? I do have it on here. Oh, I love that. Designing your cookies. That's fantastic. Yeah, if you don't have a background, moving things around won't be a big deal. But if you are on a colored background, that's the only time it would be a bit of an issue. Winnie, let me just see quickly if I can get him up on screen. Mike, I think. The other thing to look up is Sketchnote Army. There you go, Road Design. So he's kind of like the father of sketchnoting, I guess you could say. For me, I was at an Apple conference and I watched Brad Overnall Carter do sketchnoting. So that's what got me into it. I know some people have seen Sylvia's great work. So yeah. So if you are on Autodesk, just to show folks. Now, if you're looking for a simple tool, bamboo paper may be the option for you. I realized I tried it out on my phone last night and not here. So let's see if we can force quit and bring it back. So I do like the Autodesk apps. Is it not going to let me not do the tour? It is. The iPhone app is a little simpler. go up to the top where you have kind of the page icon, and I can do a new sketch. So this is kind of Autodesk Sketchbook is very similar to what you would see with your Photoshop apps, where they're giving you layers. And this is one of the reasons I do like Sketches School, because it goes straight in. But I do like that Autodesk has a lot of options. Bamboo Paper on Android doesn't have a ton of options, so I know that limits people a little bit. Alinka, we're just sharing, so people on Android were looking for options. So Bamboo Paper would be one, and then this is another. So Jennifer, you definitely have that option to draw. You have your undo. For your tools, most of them you have to tap on them to control. And then for our colors, we're down here in the corner. So you have a lot of options. Jennifer, another one to check out, Bamboo Paper is great. So definitely a lot of different options out there. Definitely, and Alinka, that's what I like, having just a starting point for your friends, no matter what device they're using, definitely makes it better. All right, let me know what you created with your 5. Yeah, Jennifer, I don't like, that's why Sketches School definitely is my favorite when using it with kids, just because it's that one layer. But yeah, so if you like that one layer, try Bamboo Paper. You'll have more of that. You drew a kite, cool. What did you draw? Let me know, and we're gonna go on to the next step. Trees and flowers. And I think, Sharon, that's a great example with the shapes, right? I think a lot of times we think drawing a forest would be scary, but I quickly, a bunch of different shapes put together, and I have an interesting scene. A cupcake, cool, scribble people. Melina, you're so, I'm very impressed. I'm scared of people. I'll show you my little shortcut in a little bit. Your dog, wow, trees, sun, piano keyboard. Drew your dishwater. That's it. There's so many cool things around us to kind of doodle and sketch. Okay, so the other thing, we're gonna start with symbols, and you can stick to the symbols, or I'll show you how you can draw on pictures, just if it's whatever works better for you. So when we when we get into sketchnoting, we really want to be thinking of those symbols. And sometimes it's easy when we have a kite or a forest to have that picture really quickly. But one of the things I found is I have to find my own, kind of have my own visual vocabulary, which sounds really crazy. But every time I draw technology, for example, I always, I hit delete screenshot. There we go. Sorry. My headphones and my Apple Pencil are colliding. So every time I draw technology, I always use the fill tool, and I'm gonna go to the solid one there, and I always draw one, oops, what not to do. Sorry, friends. I draw a rectangle, and then I change the color to white, and I draw another rectangle. And then I usually draw a little circle so nobody can mistake it, not for a device. And I really quickly have a symbol for technology. So for me, I always do that shape. I'll do it again because it's driving. I'm a little sad that it's not, it's not balanced. And this is where those guides are really helpful, that dotted paper that you see behind you, which because I use the pictures, we're not gonna see. That's okay. So as you go through, there's lots of different, symbols are really personal. There's something that's gonna make sense to you that doesn't maybe make sense to other people, but it's again about your notes. So what would you use for collaboration? What would your symbol be? What would your symbol be for global citizens? And again, I'm terrible at drawing people. I've tried, it stresses me out. I get so focused on the person, I never actually finish the drawing. So my little hack is I always draw a little blob and a little blob, and that's always my symbol for people. And in my sketch notes, I often would put an L in here so that I know that isn't a very good contrasting color. Let's put a white. I keep hitting it. Oh my goodness, people, so sorry. Just being too flicky there. So I'll put an L there, and that's my learner. So it doesn't need to be anything fancy, but really we're thinking of those symbols and those words you use a lot. So coming up with your own vocabulary, coming up with a symbol that represents a word to you is a really helpful way when you're sketchnoting, especially when you're taking notes, so that you have that quick symbol that represents that greater concept. So again, for me, because of my work, collaboration, and global citizenship, especially my old job as a modern learning resource teacher, were words that I would come across a lot. You may have symbols that you want to use in your notes. Maybe it's for your curriculum areas, or maybe it's just even planning, because we see a lot of people doing that with their bullet journals. Yeah, so Jennifer, that is the downside. That's all they have at the moment, and they don't let you put pictures in. So I'm really hoping that over time, Jennifer, they'll change that up. Jamboard's a funny one too. They have great drawing tools, but the drawing tools that you would want are on the iPad. So you miss out on a lot of the shapes and those pieces. So Chrome Canvas is beautiful and really easy, but you do only have what you see. But it's new. So fingers crossed, they'll get more tools coming over time. Lisa, if you're in, because you're using paper, you can change your background. We don't have this with Sketches School, and unfortunately, paper used to be completely free, and then they changed over time. So if you are on the bottom toolbar on your paper and you have the dot paper, just to show you guys what that looks like, that's that little dot there. So you can actually change it up, and you can take that off later. How are we feeling? So in Sketches School, okay, just going through the questions again. Drop your questions in the chat box if I've missed it. So we talked about the dotted paper. The color palette is just that little square. Let me point to it. Let's get so just down here, I'm just gonna, purple is the weirdest thing. So in Sketches School, you just have that color swatch in the bottom right corner. Now you can get as fancy as you want. So if you hold it, for the art teachers in the room, you can actually change those shades up. So you can get really fancy. Again, for sketchnoting or for that quick sketching, for a lot of our kids, that color palette is enough. But if you do want to get fancy, you have that option. So just hanging out in the bottom corner. Different apps will have different ranges of colors. So many different possibilities. Melina, I'll show you the Digi Art Box post I made. I kind of broke it down into different steps. So I have one video where we look at annotating a picture. I have another video where we talk about using the fill tool. But if there's something else you want, I have some Lou time coming on Friday, so we could make something if you have an idea of what you want the kids to do. Jennifer, I know a lot of information. Bamboo paper. I'll make sure to put it into the curated collection. All right, so some people got to the picture part. Let me show you the pictures. If you're still doing the symbols, that's cool, keep going. But for those of us that wanted to look at the picture, so I have my picture here and I want to delete it. So in Sketches School, and I'm just going to point to it because I don't know if you can see it there. There's these 3 dots at the top. And my 3 dots give me a lot of different options. So one of them though, Swati, if you've already done it, and I probably said your name wrong, I'm sorry, I should know over all these years. But if I click the X, it will take that picture away. And just to show friends, again, if I tap on those 3 dots, I get this 2 boxes. Oh, it's not gonna let me show you and draw at the same time. So let's do it here. You get these 2 boxes. One has a down arrow and one has an up arrow. The up arrow will let me export. The down arrow will let me download. So if I tap on that, I can take a picture live. So again, fantastic for nature journaling. But I can also go to photos and I can take a photo and I can draw right on it. Just like with your stickers, like with the shapes, I can move that around. Once I let go and hit the check mark, it's going to stick for me. So I won't be able to move it again unless I cut it out and move it around. Again, to get rid of that picture, 3 dots, X, and my picture disappears. So just going to use my little pointer there again. So again, that box with the down arrow, I can grab my picture, photo, once I'm happy with it, check mark, and then I can draw right on top. Actually, black would probably work better there. So there's butter. Score bar. Flower. So we can annotate right on the picture. Yeah, so I'll show the picture part one more time, and then I'm going to come into the questions. Unfortunately, with Sketches School, you can only do 1 picture at a time. So you would have to do something like pick collage and then drop them in and write on them. You can draw on pick collage too. I'll show you that idea as well. I did say your name right. Awesome. So yeah, so let's go out. We'll do a new page again. So if you're wanting to add your picture in, there's 3 dots hanging out at the top. I'm just going to put my little marker there underneath. And when I tap on those 3 dots, I get a box with the arrow down. And then I can go to photo and choose the photograph that I want to write on. So just to show you an example, that was one where I just was exploring how to help friends kind of explore a concept. There are so many possibilities when we look at drawing on pictures. I'll just show you, I'm gonna do one other one. One of my favorites is using the fill tool to create spooky scenes. And this is one of the videos I have already if it looks interesting to you. And I probably won't have a spooky scene here. Oh, that's okay. We'll make a forest creature. So using the fill tool and using the transparency, I just created my own little haunted ghosts. You can make anything, but you can see how we can now just add that one layer to our picture, and now we have some storytelling happening. We've done it too with bringing in objects. So we actually did this for point of view with students. So we had them photograph objects from that perspective. And then we just had them bring them to life. So we'd have our friend here. So I'm just going to make some eyes on him. I'm going to use a marker. And we can see how we can quickly get into some storytelling and annotation. Even as a nonfiction piece, I think right now for living things, any of our strands within the science strand could be great pieces to annotate. So taking a picture of a habitat, taking a picture of a living thing, annotating right on it. I saw somebody did this awesome thing even for human body where kids took pictures of themselves and then sketched the organ systems onto themselves. But yeah, the one limitation, Ali, is that you are limited to one picture at a time. So you only can sketch on that picture. And it doesn't have to be full screen like you saw with the recipe. It could be off to the side. How are we feeling? Do we feel comfortable? Do we have more questions? We had one more challenge for us tonight. I'm also cognizant of the time. It always goes so fast. So maybe as people drop in their questions or tell us that they're ready, I'll show you the 3 drawing videos that I do have ready to go. And then you, again, if there's a different video you want, if you want me to make one about the 5 shapes, we could do that. So this one was just an easy challenge. We just talked about using one tool and capturing what we observed. So I actually used the shape tool. So if you go next, it will just play a little video and get you started. This was the little spooky stories. So it was editing the scene and then adding those spooky elements. This one was kind of a cool one. It's one that I actually got from Oliver Jeffers. It was a prompt they had for Earth Day a year ago. And he talked about taking a picture of your community and seeing how you would make it a better place. We've also done it for portraits, and this I only used Pic Collage for this one. So just using the Pic Collage tools to enhance the photograph. So we played with the contrast and then explored. I had a friend do it with her grade 2s. It was so cool. And this was the one I did most recently. I was just exploring really, and this one's Sketches School as well, just looking at how we could take an image and then add those layers of learning on top. So to Sula's point about being able to add pictures or words to tell and communicate our understanding. So Mae Jameson, I was doing some research on her and I was able to hide the details all around the picture. And it came from a photographer that does that as a social justice platform. He puts data into images. Sketching is so much fun. I always end up finding that I lose track of time as I'm doodling. So it definitely is a mental health break. And for me, the one thing I'm hoping to do eventually, so I just got this book. I don't know if you can see it. It's called Beautiful Symmetry. It's a lady, an individual, that actually explores the complexities of math, symmetry, and transformations and tessellations through coloring. So it did prompt me to think of how could students draw their own coloring pages using symmetry, transformations, and tessellations. It'd be a fun way to apply it. If you're in your page, if you go back to your notebook, oops, I'm sorry, you're not seeing my page there. So if you're in your book, if you tap on a page, I thought there was a duplicate. but maybe only in, it might be only in paper 53 that I have that option. Oh, I don't know if it's in Sketch School. Catherine, I'll have to play with it a bit more. Yeah, unfortunately it is just that one picture on one slide. Elizabeth, great option for showing math in pictures. And if you're worried that Sketch School is a little bit too much, just know that in your photos, I have a folder of math photos somewhere, if anybody sees it. They should be in alphabetical order, but they're not. And I maybe have a problem with my photos, with taking too many photos. But remember, you also have your markup tools, which you'll find on Android or Apple. So they're great starting points when you're exploring. Oh, we'll just do it with these guys. So this was one I was actually doing with a friend. So if I go to edit, I think on your Android, it's under the pencil. And it's actually hiding in the 3 dots, but they have markup tools. So you have a whole drawing palette right within your photo app. And Android does the same thing. So coming to your point, Elizabeth, really quickly students can be annotating and marking up those pictures, looking for that line of symmetry. That's something we did before, just quickly annotating, looking for shapes in their picture. So being able to annotate that, there's just so many possibilities. All right, I'll tell you the last challenge. You can do the last challenge. You can drop your questions about sketchnoting, drop your comments, drop your ideas. As our time comes to an end tonight, I know we just have 7 minutes left. Oh, Catherine, I'm going to show that next. Don't let me forget. We're going to show you how you can copy and paste. So when I'm sketchnoting, there's one other piece that's kind of essential, and it's really that idea of having frames and labels and connectors. That's the piece that brings all of the other pieces together. So frames, we see it in different ways, right? We can really see a mind map where we're just taking those pictures and we're just drawing those extensions. Sometimes though, we can see them just as boxes. The headphones aren't working for me tonight. So I can draw a quick box and explore that way. If I make the line bigger, I won't notice my wonkiness as much. Coming to your point, Catherine, though, if I'm drawing, I'm going to do, I am grateful for. So I'm going to push those tools out of the way and draw a little box here. And then I want 5 boxes around my page. So I'm going to bring my tools back, swipe back over, and I'm going to draw 1. And I want to copy this box. Whoa, can't handle that one. Sorry, friends. So there's my box. That's going to be my frame. Very low key frame. But if I use the cut tool again, and it's the weirdest thing ever, you hold and you drag, and it will duplicate. So you don't have to draw it that many times. Do you want me to do that again, Catherine? Does that make sense? Thanks, Chrissy, to your point about heat calls. I don't know if they're pushing virtually to students' devices, but students can install, unfortunately. We'll do it again for sure. Okay. So if I wanted a frame, so I like my circle here, I use my X-Acto knife to cut it out. And then I'm using 2 fingers and I'm holding and dragging. And now I quickly have those 3 frames. This is where knowing your tools is helpful, because I'd use that little crayon tool. I tend to go with blues, to do a little label area. So it's a quick one that I don't need to think too much, and I quickly have labels, and then I can write on top what I'm grateful for. So I'm grateful for water, for the lake and nature. So with this layout, I wouldn't need connectors. Sometimes I have them, sometimes I don't. I find a lot of times I'll be using the frames more than anything when I'm organized. If you get really comfortable with sketchnoting, there's different flows you can use, but I usually don't tackle that. I've tried different flows and they don't end up working for me. So I find I either map out from the middle like a mind map, or I do something like this with frames, knowing how long it's going to take. Now, that little copy and paste is handy when you're doing frames, but it's also handy if you're trying to do something like a pattern, or if you're wanting to explore. So let's see here. If I did a circle, we're gonna then bring too thick. Oh, oh. So now I can cut that out. Oh, too finger. Now, if you're on paper, it works a little bit differently, and I always do this wrong. Yeah, let's cut it out again. And now it doesn't want to work for me. Go figure. 2 fingers is the key, even when it gets stuck. And this is when you realize you get so used to one app that it's hard to get used to another app. So on paper, it's actually a hold and tap. But check out my pattern making there. It's pretty fun. If you want to delete half of the page, so what I would do when I want to delete a big section, and this is just a hack, it's not really anything people would probably tell you to do, is I usually cut it out and I try to just push it off the page. So that's kind of my strategy when I want to move a big section of my drawing. It's just easier for me. So Alinka, what I found I had to do was when it was stuck, I just had to tap down for a second. And then it let me come back in. But really handy if you're trying to, so let's just tap that down. There we go. Oh, tap down. Now we can go drag it. So try tapping down and then dragging it. Hey, awesome. Your time is up. How is that possible? It goes by so fast. Math arrays would be awesome for math arrays. I did one once where I was even sketchnoting data, and then I put it into animate. So I would do a row at a time. So instead of drawing 50 schools, I drew 1 school, made a row of 5, and then made my 10, which again, to your point, great way of kind of illustrating math and arrays. Well, our time's come to an end. I hope you've found some new ideas to kind of take away. I'll curate all of the pieces together. Last year, I didn't bring that up, I should have. Last summer, I put together a little challenge. So if you wanted to show this with kids, you definitely could. Again, I don't mind making a specific video if you want me, if there's something that kind of piqued your interest. But last year I did a little collection. So there's actually 5 different video clips. So as you go through, I just kind of put them each individually. And I also have one that we used last fall for our nature walk. So it was more about going outside and annotating outside. So I'll put those all in our curated collection tonight, tomorrow, so that if you want to revisit or want to share or just want to go back to one piece, you can do that. Yeah, so different apps will copy different ways. That's the hard part about the fact that there's so many